It's been 13 years since Avatar was released in theaters and became the biggest box office hit of all time. But despite the fact that there's been such a long gap, it looks like the hype is real for Avatar 2, The Way of Water, as it's set to completely and totally dominate the box office this weekend, not just here domestically, but also internationally. And if it does the numbers that it's looking at, not only will it be the biggest box office opening of this year, but it's going to completely and totally debunk and embarrass all of the people who have been making excuses for Marvel, been making excuses for these other big budget movies this year by saying, oh, COVID, we don't see the same box office numbers with COVID, because from the looks of it, with an over $500 million global opening, Avatar 2, The Way of Water is set to be a hit regardless of what these people want to say about the pandemic. Avatar, The Way of Water charts course for year's best global box office opening. James Cameron's long-awaited sequel is launching around the world this weekend, including in China. Now, obviously, that is a big one because that's not somewhere that anybody's been able to get into. These Marvel movies haven't been released there. The DC movies, Black Adam, even with The Rock, couldn't get released there. Top Gun Maverick surely didn't get released there after they made sure to stick by their guns, not change anything just for a Chinese audience. But James Cameron did get Avatar 2 in there, and that could be a massive addition to the box office, even though they won't see the returns that they would get from here domestic or other international places studio-wise. James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water is finally setting sail. Hollywood and worried theater owners are counting on the long-awaited sequel to close out 2022 in grand fashion after a tough fall season. Tough fall season, certainly. The worst Thanksgiving box office in history. The worst September in history. Well, about 25 years. When you factor in inflation, certainly in history. But it's bad news right now when it comes to the theaters, when it comes to Hollywood. But it looks like this movie is set to do incredibly well. If tracking is correct, The Way of Water should score a domestic debut of $150 million to $170 million and $750 to $550 million globally. I've seen some estimates that put it around $525. I've seen some that say it could hit nearly $600 million if everything goes right. There is the finale to the World Cup on Sunday. Globally, that could have a decent effect on who goes out to see it this weekend. But still, we're talking about $500 million. That would dethrone Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness as the biggest global opening. Remember, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness opened to nearly $449 billion and then stalled out completely. Like it didn't even get to $1 billion after that. I think Avatar 2 is going to have much bigger legs than these Marvel movies. But just think about this. If this number is correct, if we do see that type of opening and then we see it continue to go out and make money, right now, most people do think it'll hit $2 billion, which is, a couple months ago, I thought that was insane to think about. I was thinking maybe $1 billion to $1.5 billion. Now I've had to say that I think it's going to make $2 billion. I really do with the numbers we're seeing. And it certainly needs to, because remember what James Cameron came out and said. Avatar 2 is so expensive, it must become the 4th or 5th highest grossing film in history just to break even. That puts it at that $2 billion mark. Well, now that we're seeing some of the numbers for this, it does make sense. When you look at this, The Way of Water costing $350 million to $400 million to produce before marketing, that number now is official. We heard rumors about that for a while. It was supposed to originally only be a $250 million production budget. That ballooned. So if we're talking almost $400 million, on top of that, you add 150, maybe $200 million global marketing. That's a realistic number for a movie like this. Yeah, then it would have to do close to something like $2 billion globally, to really start making money. That's a real thing, especially if a lot of that's coming from China, where you only get 25% of the box office cuts. Internationally, you only get about 40% of the box office cut that goes back to the studio. So yeah, it could legitimately be something like that. But by all accounts right now, people are expecting it to dominate at the box office. And what does that mean, right? What does that mean for movies like this? Movies like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Madness. What were the complaints? Well, you know, just in a COVID world, despite a big open, just in a COVID world, it just couldn't get a billion. Thor: Love and Thunder, same thing, they blamed COVID. Wakanda Forever, same thing, they're blaming COVID. You know, these are massive, big budget tentpoles for Marvel that the excuse the entire time has just been, well, in this world. No, the reality is they're turning fans away. They're pushing fans away. MCU Phase 4 was absolute dog shit. Nearly everything in it was very divisive to fans. And now they're not going to be able to hide behind that excuse. When something like Avatar comes out and dominates. Again, that's all assuming that these projections are accurate. But I have a feeling, you know, as well as all the other box office projections out there, have a feeling that the legs for something like this are going to be much better than what we've seen for Marvel. This is a franchise that's, you know, had people train to go out to the theaters, train to go out and support the next thing, support the current thing. Avatar 2 has been gone. Avatar has been gone for 13 years. And I don't even know how many people were begging for a sequel or anything like that, because let's face it, the first Avatar movie, culturally, does it really stand up? Does it stand out? I don't really think so. But nevertheless, people are now getting excited to go back to the theater and see what James Cameron has in store for this next iteration. I have no idea what to expect, if it's good or not, but I do know this thing's set to make a shit ton of money opening weekend. And in reality, they are going to completely debunk and embarrass all the people that have been making excuses for these dog shit Marvel movies over the last few years. Let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my PO box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.